Well, hello everybody. Danny back from Deep South Homestead for Porch time, and kind of come in today. It's a little bit rainy outside. I was going to shoot the video outside, but it is raining a little bit, on and off, kind of patchy. Every now and then it gets really hard, and then it light rain for a while. I'm just enjoying it. Sun comes out, cloudy. Sun comes out, cloudy. So far, last I looked, we had, oh my goodness, we had, I think it was 1 3/8 of rain since yesterday evening, which is not a lot, but you know what? Right now, as dry as we are, it is welcomed. Now, I haven't been to the field to see if it's, or I say the field, to the garden, to see if it's moist enough that I can use the cub to flat break the field or not. Because remember, I had ran the chisel plow through it and chisel plowed the whole field so that if it did rain, it would soak up enough water that maybe I could turn it with the cub. So we'll give it a day or two and we'll let it kind of absorb in, and we'll see. Let's just hope that there's enough moisture that we'll be able to flat break that field, because I really need to be able to get some stuff ready to plant. Now, very disappointed in my little seed trays I had going. I had some beautiful onions. I did a video on, I call it giving them a haircut. They were up yay high, and some of them looked like 5 inches tall, some of them, like that. And I usually go through and just clip the tops off of all of them so that the growth goes back into the roots in it rather than the top of it. Well, we did that, and I took them out of the greenhouse and set them outside so that they could get more sunlight. And I set my broccolis out and my cauliflowers out and all that, little seed trays. Well, so far, the cauliflower is still trying to make it. Most of the broccoli did not make it. The sun come out, oh my goodness, when it came out, it just killed it. Then my onions, most of them, they still some that's still in the little cups trying to grow, killed most all the onions. Guys, that sun, even though it was only like 84 degrees was the hottest that it was, when I took it out of the greenhouse and put it outside, the sun was so intense that it just killed it, and I wasn't expecting that. So lesson learned. So now, told Wanda, I said, we're going to try to replant again and see if we've got enough time to make it. I don't know if we do, but if we don't, I'll have to order from Dixondale. I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to be able to raise my own, but was not expecting that to happen. Now we're going to try something a little different this time. We're not going to use the little cell trays. We're going to take one of our Vago beds in the high tunnel, and we're going to break it up and put some new soil in it. We're going to do an experiment. I said I wasn't going to experiment, but I have to know on my cow manure how it will affect and work with young plants. I'm going to go up to the barn. I'm going to shovel me up, or in my tractor bucket, I'm going to get me some cow manure and come down, because I have to refill my Vago beds, and I'm going to take one of them and we're going to fill it up with cow manure that's been in the stall for quite a while and broke down. No fresh, just the old stuff, and add it to that. And we're going to turn it all in, and we're going to do some tests on it and see what it's like, and then we're going to plant our onion seeds and our broccoli seeds and some more cabbage seeds in there, because right now the cauliflower seems like it's working. Like there's enough of it. If it don't die, we may have enough cauliflower. But just to see how it works, to take one of the Vago beds and kind of make like a little hotbed out of it to raise some plants in. And if it works, then from this point on, that is what we will do, because it has a 40% shade cloth over the top of it, and it's fixing to turn chilly. I say chilly. It's still going to be in the 80s, but the nighttime temps, I think they said it's going to get down in the 50s. So we'll see how that goes, and we're going to try it. And if it looks like it's not going to work, then we'll have to order our stuff from Dixondale. And as I hate to, I have to go to town and purchase my cabbage plants and my broccoli plants. That stuff's so expensive to have to buy, and it makes it where we're not as sustainable if we can't figure out how to grow this stuff. We've got to be able to be sustainable. Wanda and I was talking. When we were kids, you could throw seed, but not even when we were kids. Let's just say 6 or 7 years ago, we just put seeds in the ground over at Deep South Homestead, and I had built some cold frames. I think people call them cold frames. We call them hot boxes, whatever you want to call them. And we throw our seeds in there, and stuff would come up. I mean, man, stuff would just flourish, and we grew some amazing stuff. Now then, the soil I was using was not, it wasn't all bought potting soil. I had trash piles rotting down that I had pushed up several years, and we were taking and digging that soil out of them trash piles, just organic matter is all it was, and putting it in our pots, and we were growing in that and having fantastic luck with it. Well, we're here at Pecan Grove. We've only been here 2 years, and the stuff is just now beginning to break down in the trash piles where I can start scooping it out. And I told her, I said, we're going to have to go back to the old method of just digging that soil out of those trash piles and using it instead of buying all this bagged soil that we're buying, because the bagged soil is just not working. You know, it's just don't have enough of what the plants need in it, I guess I might say. But you know, this past week, Tim and Heidi had come up, and Tim had brought one of his American guinea hog and Berkshire, I got it right this time, and Berkshire cross pigs with him, and wanted me to try one of them and see what my thoughts was on it. It was around, I think we weighed it when we dispatched it, was 91 pounds, which was a nice sized little pig. And it was kind of funny because Tim come up, we put the pig out, and I had I always keep a gun with me on my Ranger, and I told him, I said, I'll dispatch him, don't worry about it, you know. And I grabbed my little .22 rifle, and I grabbed one of my Victorinox knife, and I walked up there, and he put some corn down and get the pig to eat. Well, I dispatched it, which it dropped instantly, you know, and you've got like a 6 or 8 second window there that you can bleed it. And I had laid the knife up on the pin there, and I shot it. And I said, "Okay, Tim, go ahead and, you know, get his throat." And he said, "I'm here to learn from you." And I'm like, it kind of startled me for a minute there, and I jumped and grabbed the knife, and I only make an incision about maybe 1 inch in the throat to sever both arteries on the side of the neck. Well, because I was a little late getting, you know, maybe a few seconds behind on it, because I thought maybe Tim was going to do it, I was only able to get to one artery on the neck, and then and the pig was as he was dying, I was able to go ahead and get the other one on the other side too, with just a little tiny hole like that, you know, in it, and it bled out so well. It turned out really, really good, you know, when we when we dispatched the hog. Well, we took it over, and when we were vesicrating it, I was amazed at the quality of this animal. I mean, it was really, really a nice animal. And once we got it dispatched and desiccated, we hung it in a cooler, and I left it in a cooler for 3 days to tenderize it a little bit. And then I did the video yesterday of it cutting it up and everything, and I'm gonna tell you, it had some of the absolute prettiest meat in it I think I've ever seen in a young pig. I actually, to be honest with you, there was 0 blood in that pig. That was probably the best bleed out I've ever had on an animal. I mean, it just blew my mind as to how well that pig bled out. And when we got through, you know, we fellowshiped with Tim and Heidi for a while, and Tim and I always we carry on some of the most unusual conversations in the world because Tim's very intellectual, and we were sitting there talking about homesteading, and I'm just going to be honest with you, I've never ever really been comfortable with calling with calling myself a homesteader, because in my way of looking at it, I'm really not a homesteader. You know, homesteaders are people who got 160 acres of land from the government, and they, you know, had to promise the government that they would make a certain part of their income off of it for X number of years and all this kind of stuff down the line. And I think it was I don't remember what year it was, somewhere around 1980, or could have been 70 something. Alaska finally was the last state that done away with homesteading. And just like, kind of like religion, or the Bible, let me just say the Bible, kind of like the Bible, we've changed the meaning of things to meet our circumstances. And kind of, people do that with the scriptures all the time. They'll take a passage out of the Bible and they'll change the meaning of it to fit what they want it to fit, which is not right. And I think we've taken the word homesteading and we've done exactly the same thing. We've tried to say that, I mean, I'm on 40 something acres here, and which is a quarter of 160, which is what a homestead was back then. It was 160 acres. And I don't know, I've always felt like that the term homesteader or homesteading just wasn't what really needed to be. That terminology just to me just didn't fit, you know, because I'm not on 160 acres, and I'm not promising the government that I would make X number of things. And to say that we're homesteaders is to change what the actual meaning of it was in the beginning to fit a modern society, I guess I might say. So me and Tim sit there and talk about it. Says, well, what are we? You know, what are we if we're not a homesteader? I mean, I'm not a prepper. Even though I prep some items, I'm not a prepper, you know? And the list goes on and on, you know, about people. Some people call themselves this, some people call themselves that. I'm self-sustainable. Well, we're about 95% self-sustainable probably. And I'm like something, it's just not fitting. The terminologies is just not fitting us. And Tim came to the rescue this week. He sent a message. Wanda told me, says, you got to see what Tim sent. He found out what we are. And I'm like, found out what we are. And then it registered to me. I'm like, oh. I said, really? And she said, you got to read this. You know, and I told her, I said, okay. So I'm going to read to you something here that Tim sent me. And guys, I think it might be closer to what we are. And I've never thought about this than calling ourselves preppers, homesteaders, you know, self-sustainable, whatever. I think this probably fits us better. I have my little laptop here, my tablet, I mean. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Because I thought this was so, I mean, it's a word I never had really thought of. It's actually two words. The word is Resilient Agrarian. Resilient Agrarian. A resilient agrarian refers to an agricultural system or community that can recover from or adapt to or thrive despite disruptions like climate issues, economic shocks, social changes, often by diversifying their income and production, strengthening natural resource management, integrating traditional and new practices. Key strategies including things like improving soil health, diversifying crops and livestock, implementing ecological farming methods, building a strong community and marketing connections. And when I read that, I was like, wow. I said, you know, that makes more sense than anything else. And some of the words like adaptability, the characteristics of being a resilient agrarian is the adaptability, the ability to adjust to changing conditions such as extreme weather events, pests, diseases, shifts in the economy, the diversity, like incorporating various crops, livestock, income streams, which reduces dependence on a single element, making the system less vulnerable to single points of failure. Sustainability, a focus on healthy soils, clean water, and other natural resources ensures a long-term capacity of the land to be able to produce. Integration, blending traditional knowledge with modern tools and techniques such as irrigation or new crop varieties with the old, blending the new with the old. Community and economic connections, strong links between farmers, communities, and larger food systems, including access to non-farm income sources and capital. Guys, and then it goes on to strategies for building an agrarian resilience, soil health management, product diversification, ecological design, marketing incomes, technical and financial support, policies. Guys, this right here explains more of what we are trying to accomplish than anything I think I have ever come across. And Tim found that and sent that to me. And I really like that. A resilient agrarian, never thought about that. But I like that more so than I do being called a homesteader. Now, the name of my channel is Deep South Homestead. I'm not going to be changing that at Pecan Grove. I'm not going to change that. But I'm going to try to keep the practices of this more. It's what we do already. We already do these things here at Deep South at Pecan Grove. We already do this. And I never knew what it was actually called. And I think this is probably a better way of looking at what we are. Basically what we described there is a mixture of permaculture, monolithic gardening, all that kind of stuff. All of it put into one, trying to adapt to the weather conditions as they change and all this. Lots of people, I listen to their videos. I've listened to Joey from JT West. He has made comments several times. He's not a homesteader. It could be said that maybe he is a resilient agrarian, on his channel, because he doesn't call himself a homesteader. I don't know if he actually knows what he calls himself. I mean, and I know lots of other channels out there that have said they're not homesteaders, but they meet this criteria. And I think this is probably, in the modern society where we live today, I think this is probably more so of what we are than what we thought we were. Because lots of people look at me and they think I'm a prepper. I'm not a prepper. I'm not. Even though I do some prepping things, I'm not a prepper. And even though I do some homesteading things, I do things like they used to do on the old homesteads, I've never really been comfortable with being called a homesteader, even though I have just went along with it. I think this terminology right here, the resilient agrarian, fits better than the other does, because I incorporate a lot of the old in with the new modern tools. Now, I've done one of the videos I did here a while back. Can we go back or why does everybody gravitate toward the old ways or the old ways of life? And guys, we can't go back to that. The only way we could actually go back to that lifestyle would be that if there was a coronal mass ejection that knocked out all power to the whole earth, or a nuke was dropped and we have an EMP that literally took out everything, and there was no power, no fuel, no way to get anything like that, and we all was in this boat together, and we just had to go back to living that lifestyle again. Then I could say it might be possible that we could go back to that. But then, unless it happened globally, some other country would come in and take over, and it would be much like, like World War II was, when countries took over and or when the Iron Curtains, all that kind of stuff. You might go under communism, you might go under socialism, and then everybody's lifestyles would change. And even though a lot of those lifestyles did live that life, they were under tyranny really, really bad. And I don't think it would be the same. I really don't think it would be the same. But it would be closer to being that lifestyle if all the power was gone. But according to the Bible, we're not ever going to go back to, before the Lord comes back, we're not going to go back to not having power. Because and the reason I say that, and there's one reason I don't worry too much about some things, is that in order for the beast system to operate and function like it's supposed to function, then you're going to have AI. And in order to have AI, you're going to have massive amounts of power to do it. Now, does it mean that every place on the earth will have that? No, it doesn't mean that every place on the earth, but it does, in the scriptures, it does tell us that the whole world will be under the beast system. And in order to be under that beast system, there has to be some way of managing all the populations of the world, unless some sort of apocalyptic events has taken place and there's not as many people as they used to be. And the places where there are a lot of people left at, then they have power and electricity to keep the beast system running. So I don't really see a time where we're actually out of power, because Now, there will become a time, don't get me wrong, there will come a time, because in Revelation, when it talks about Mystery Babylon, and it talks about the merchants set out on their ships, and they wail and lament over the destruction of Babylon, Mystery Babylon, because it says she burns in 1 hour. Literally, her economy collapses in 1 hour. And they are lamenting and wailing over the loss of revenue and income, and because they thought she was arrayed in fine linen and, you know, purples and gold and all this kind of stuff, talking about her wealth. And in Jeremiah it talks about she was the hammer of the world. And it just goes on through scriptures. It talks about Mystery Babylon all through the scriptures. And, you know, that being said, there will come a time when the ability to function for that particular part of history will cease to exist. But now the ones on the ship are not experiencing the loss that Mystery Babylon is experiencing, because they're sitting out there, they're wanting their trade, you know, because they're realizing they're losing their trade, and that's an income for them. They're losing their income, their source of income, and the Bible says that she's committed fornication with the whole earth, you know. So she's big enough that she's been in bed with the whole earth with things that are immoral, you know. So there will come a time when there may not be power for just literally everybody that's out there. But I don't think that that's going to be anytime soon. When I say anytime soon, I mean, maybe that was not the proper word to use. It could be very soon, but I don't think it's something that we as God's children need to worry about, because it is Christ Himself that is unleashing these woes and these horsemen and all these plagues and stuff like that in heaven. It is Him who's unleashing them. So, and He's not unleashing them for His own people. He's unleashing them for those that have been disobedient to Him and His Father. But now it doesn't mean that we won't, those of us that might still be here won't have to deal with some of the ramifications of it. Because you got to realize, in Revelations, it tells us that at some point, 2/3 of the earth's population will die. And it doesn't look and say that some of it won't be God's people that dies in these cataclysmic events that takes place, you know. So, well, that's the reason I use the term, those of us who are left, or those who are left. We don't know. We don't know who will be left. That they'll have to deal with this. And because it's evident that some of God's people will have to deal with it, because it speaks of it in Revelation, you know. And it's if you go back and look at Matthew chapter 24, it talks about, blessed are those who make it to the end. Those shall be saved. You know, and if you've made it to the end, then you'll be saved, because when you go into the tribulation period, to the millennial period, all of humanity hasn't died. You know, there will still be people on the earth during the millennial reign of Christ and His saints. Not everyone will have died. And because it makes the comment, it says, someone who dies at 100 years old will die as a child. In other words, we'll have the ability to live just like they did back when Adam and Eve was here, to live 1,000 years. The body will, because the influence of sin and Satan won't be here anymore. And he'll be locked up for 1,000 years, and God gives man the opportunity during this dispensational period to prove to him, even though Satan is not here on the earth to make and lead man to be wicked, man's heart will be wicked above all things. He will still do things that's wrong. And that's why it says that Christ will rule with a rod of iron during that time. I didn't intend to get off on that subject right there, but it just, the Spirit led, so I just decided to go that way. And but getting back to the to what we are or what we call ourselves, or what we really are, the resilient agrarian is probably a more accurate terminology of that. And we see that during the latter part of the age that we're living in, this church age, it looks like that's what we're all going to end up being, as a resilient agrarian. And I think that terminology is probably going to end up being the catchphrase, because it's what we are today. We're past the era of being homesteading. We've moved into this new modern era, where we have AI and all these other stuff, entities, let me even say that, that's here with us. We have robots now. We have lots of stuff that mankind has not known for a long time. Because and it has been before now, because we can't say that it hadn't, because Solomon in the scripture says there's absolutely nothing new under the sun. Because what is has already been. So the age that we're moving into now has been before, and evidently, where was it at? In Mexico. Steve Quayle. Those of you who are familiar with Steve Quayle, Steve has made some comments about how that we've dug up 400 feet deep into the earth. We've dug up ancient computers that were computers from way back, ancient times. So the technology has been there before, and I don't know when it was. I don't know anything about it. I just know that they have found it, and it has been here before. And I don't know at what point man destroyed themselves or whatever happened, and we had to start all over again. Well, that has happened many times throughout the human history of man, until you come to the point where God is ready to deal with everything himself, according to scriptures. So anyway, but I thought, when Tim shared that with me this week, I thought I'd share it with you all. It had really had a tremendous impact on me when he sent that, and I was like, this really explains more about this modern society we're living in, and how the sun is coming out extremely bright, guys, through these. And I have blackout curtains, and it's actually coming around the edges of them in this room. But it explains a little bit more about where we're at here now. So think about that. Think about where you're at in your life, not only with your skill set, your mindset, your prepping, your homesteading, your all this kind of stuff, and see, does resilient agrarian, does it fit you better than this other terminologies that we've been using? I think we're going to find out that this fits us better as we're trying to adapt to the new climate changes and weather patterns and economic instabilities and technology up on the earth now and all this kind of stuff. I really feel like this is the era we're moving into. Think about it, guys. Thank you from Deep South Homestead.